Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma sarupine avatar varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namah. I don't know how exciting it is to be at the fag end of the conference when the body and the mind seems exhausted. But I think in sadhana also, I presume that the empirical body should go through this tiredness, this exhaustion. Then only you are in a state of receiving something that is divine and cosmic. So, and to be very honest, we have already kind of established the premise that the feminine is the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient entity, and we have all agreed with the power of the femininity, the power of the woman. Now, as a man sitting there, how do I experience in this male body? That is a very interesting, that's the question. And as yesterday, Prabha has already mentioned that there is this place called Mani Deepa, where all the devotees, irrespective of their sexes, would be women, like they would be the feminine, they will have a feminine existence. But that is only when you leave your male body. But is there a possibility of experiencing that similar kind of feminine energy in the male body? Is there a practice? Is there a sadhana? That is what I was trying to explore, and I came to this very lesser known practice known as Rāgānugā Bhakti Sādhana. And it is a Vaishnava sadhana, predominantly a Gaudiya Vaishnava sadhana, which is practiced in Bengal and the eastern part of our country, post-Chaitanya phenomena. And we have loads of Vaishnavas practicing that. But Ramakrishna, who is considered to be a Shakta Dvaita, and also definitely there is a lot of debate about his belief system, because he believed that all the paths are equally powerful. Infinite paths and infinite ways. Maybe the goal is the same. So he had gone through a lot of practices, and one of his practice was Rāgānugā Bhakti Sadhana in his Vaishnava sadhana. So we will try to find out and why it has been categorized in the art section, where you had dancers presenting their paper, and because this particular practice is modeled on the Natya Shastra, the performance model that we have. So this entire practice has a structure which is developed on Natya Shastra. So the next slide, and this is the small kind of a blueprint that we have. I would just tell you the beginning of this idea, which was conceptualized by post-Chaitanya Goswamis, how it originated, and then give a brief idea of Gaudiya Vaishnava sadhana. I won't take much of your time. I'll try to be as precise as possible. Then go into what is Rāgānugā sadhana, the process, the debate about it, and then come to Ramakrishna's practice. Because Ramakrishna, despite not being in Gaudiya Vaishnava community, had been an exemplary practitioner of Rāgānugā Bhakti Sadhana. So we'll look into that. So it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who actually was a Nayayik. He was a scholar. And then while a couple of his pilgrimages had transformed him. His first visit to Gaya, when he actually he got transformed and wanted to be a practitioner of bhakti. That is where his practice, religious practices started. From scholarly discourses, he moved into religious practice after his visit to Gaya. Then his visit to South India especially was phenomenal, because he met one of these greatest Vaishnava devotee named Rai Ramananda. So can we have the next slide? Rai Ramananda was a Shudra. And he was considered to be one of the greatest Vaishnava devotee during that time. And they had a discussion, a conversation, which is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita as well as it is mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat. And while, discussing, the conclusion that Chaitanya comes up with is that he is going to pursue the Jnana Shunya Bhakti. Now this is a very controversial phrase. What is Jnana Shunya Bhakti? Like, what jnana are you not having? Are you not having the jnana of the Param Purusha that you are actually trying to pursue through bhakti? Is bhakti totally jnana shunya? So there is a lot of debate on this, but I feel here jnana means the empirical knowledge, the knowledge of the empirical world, which kind of gives fruits. So about that particular empirical world, you need to avoid that and pursue bhakti. That is what I feel it means, Jnana Shunya Bhakti. And then they continue the conversation, and Chaitanya asks that, okay, you've told me a lot about how to practice bhakti, but what is that most important practice that I should go for? The statement is, Ehu Uttama Age Kaho Aro. Tell me something more. What is that most important practice? And Ramananda replies, Kanta Prema Sarva Sadhya Sara. It is the feeling of the love that a Kanta has, means a woman, the love that a woman can generate or experience, the paramour's love. That is the highest quality that you need. Now this is very interesting. How can a male body experience Kanta love? Now here we have already discussed Ardhanarishvara. We have discussed the feminine entity in the male body. Even Dr. Pavan was discussing about Jung's idea on gender. And he had said that we have a subconscious female entity in the male body and subconscious male entity in the female body, which he calls anima and animus. But those kind of categorization are not that potent as the kind of discussion that we have in our Shakti, Shiva Shakti presence in one single body in Ardhanarishwar. If you look into other texts also, like in Bhagavatam, where Shiva wants to see the rasa. But there is only one condition, that you can see rasa if you can be a gopi. Because apart from being gopi, you cannot enter the zone of rasa. So you have to be a sakhi, you have to be a gopi to experience that. Then we later also, which I will discuss, that even Chaitanya goes through these experiences of the female in the male body to experience that love, which he calls the ultimate love. So keeping that in mind, Rupa Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis of Chaitanya, the 6 disciples, Rupa Goswami comes up with this phenomenal book called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is based on Bharata's Natya Shastra and the later expositions, later treatise written by Abhinavagupta and then by Raja Bhoja, then Vishwanatha and Jagannatha. And later we find Rupa picking up things from all these interpretations and using it for the model that he uses for Rāgānugā Bhakti Sādhana. And these Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and there is another book called Ujjvala Neelamani, where he mentions all these things. These are used by later poets who are writing the biography of Chaitanya, like Kaviraj or Narottam Das or Vrindavan Das. They are all using elements from these 2 books, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Ujjvala Neelamani. So in this paper, what we are going to see, that how Ramakrishna, being a devotee of Kali and also practicing other religious practices, uses Rāgānugā Bhakti to experience the feminine in his body. So next slide, sir. What is Rāgānugā Bhakti Sādhana, as I've said, that Gaudiya Vaishnavism has adopted this, and Gaudiya Vaishnavism is post-Chaitanya. Chaitanya being the founder of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, he comes up with two types of bhakti paths, and one is Vaidhi Bhakti, the other one is Rāgānugā Bhakti. Vaidhi is the bhakti which depends on injunctions, instructions, what you have to do. You have to do puja, you have to do this cleaning. All these kind of injunctional bhaktis are known as Vaidhi Bhaktis. And once you have actually you are qualified for Vaidhi Bhakti, then you move into the Rāgānugā Bhakti. And in Rāgānugā Bhakti, you have a deep and a very intense kind of a longing to understand what you have been seeking for. And this longing is something very important, which Ramakrishna also mentions, is Vyakulata. This Vyakulata is one of the necessities of Rāgānugā Bhakti. An innate yearning is required. And what is that yearning? The yearning is to participate in the world of Vraj. There is this world of Vraj which has characters who are close to Krishna. The characters who are close to Krishna. So in this word called Anuga, Anuga is a very interesting word, and the two scholars, Haberman and Donna Wolf, they were trying to kind of find what are the most closest kind of translation that you would find of Anuga. One is imitation. They are saying imitation, which is being used by in performance. Plato and Aristotle both are talking about imitation, that art is created out of imitation. But here Anuga is just not imitation. Anuga is kind of inhabiting the truth that you have imagined. It is a kind of a sincere imitation through which you go into the world that you are imagining. And this is something that often psychologists and they do it. Like, you try to take your patient into that world that he is trying to imagine to sort out the mess that it has been created. So how to kind of enter that world, that is what it means. And this world is about raga. Raga means affection. Raga means loving. Raga means something that you want to be attached with. So what is that world? Now this world the Vaishnava chooses is the world of Vraj, which is there in the text Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam becomes the performing text. So if you look at the performance side of Rāgānugā Bhakti, the text is Bhagavatam. The process that you use to enter is trying to imbibe the rasa. So the rasa theory, which is explained amply in the 6th chapter of Natya Shastra, how that is being adopted by Rupa Goswami. We can just have a cursory look at that. And then while you do that, while you are present in that particular zone, what is that kind of an experience that you are having? So that transcendental, internalizing the transcendental role and having that cosmic experience that we are going to look at. Now, the most important question next. I'm just going very fast with all this, and let's go to the next slide. And this is just a representation which I have to find out what Rāgānugā Bhakti Sadhana would be. So next slide. And there is a wonderful book by David Haberman, who has done his research, a PhD, on acting as a way of salvation. That's a book, very phenomenal book, and he has also translated Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So I have been very much inspired by Haberman's work to kind of look into this particular aspect. Now, how do you look at Purusha and Prakriti? Now, this is another, because you need to find out, you need to define Purusha and Prakriti to kind of imbibe Prakriti inside you. So So according to the Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and also as Prabhav said, that in a transcendental zone, everybody is a Nari. There is a very interesting story where, Meera goes to visit Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami says that I am a sadhu and I'm not going to meet a woman. And she was shocked. And then she says, Atodin Shuninai Srimon Brindavane Ar Keho Purush Ache Krishna Bine. To date, I have never heard that there is another Purusha in Vrindavan apart from Krishna. So who are you? I want to meet you then. So that kind of concept of Purusha is there is one Purusha and there is all Nari there. The Prakriti is the other. So if you look at even Chaitanya's description according to Bhagavata, it says conclusion? Oh, no, not yet. So should I rush through it a little? Yeah, I will do that. Okay. Keeping everything in mind, so let me give you a brief idea instead of going through all this, because I know all of us are very exhausted and short of time, and definitely the paper would be there to look into this elaborately. So this Rāgānugā Bhakti is like a process through which you enter this cosmic drama. You enter this cosmic zone. So to enter this cosmic zone, you have to prepare like an actor. Like an actor. Like Professor Sharda was talking about Gangamma dressing up like a male, but not feeling like a male, but having the essence of the woman preserved. So that is a disguise, which is also with Arjuna, who is disguising in Virata Parva. But here it is not dressing up just to kind of create a disguise, but dressing up to essentially feel that particular character, like to bring in that character inside you. And so this is a very long process. And if you have understood about Sakhi Sampradaya, which is present in Mathura and Vrindavan, few other places in Uttar Pradesh, they are doing this practice. But in Bengal, we have this practice exclusively being practiced in two different forms, because later on it was found that it was being misused. It was being misused and there were these Western influences, and they considered it to be cross-dressing, homosexual relationships, and many other kind of connotations were given to that. So the Vaishnavas, they thought that this entire transformation into a Sakhi Bhav would just be mental. When you emotionally feel it inside, externally you need not go for a change. That was proposed by a scholar called Vishwanath Chakravarti. But Rupa Kaviraj said, no, this is the Sadhaka Deha. You have to reach the Siddha Deha here itself. It is not that you go into Gokul and then only you experience that. So to achieve that Siddha Deha, you have to dress up like that. You have to go through a regimentation of transformation like an actor. So in Abhinaya, what do? We go for the four Abhinayas. Angika, you go for Vachika, you go for Aharya, and you go for Sattvika. So Angika, so your Nyasha, your body movements, everything you are transforming into the character as given in Bhagavata. So you are copying the character of that Bhagavata. Vachika, the words that you are saying, you are not saying like Janardan, you are saying like a Manjari, you are saying it like a Sakhi. So you transform your Vachika also according to that. Then your costume, your backdrop, Aharya, everything is like that. And your imagination, your Sattvik, your emotional rasa that you are going to kind of create. In Bhakti, apart from those 9 rasas, there are 4 important rasas that they are talking about, which you must be knowing. Sakhya, Dasya, Vatsalya, and Sringara. And Shantaras is already there in here. But these are not the rasas. Apart from Madhura, other rasas are different in Natya Shastra. The other 8 rasas, 7 rasas are very different. So this is what the pattern is. And here it is, I will just not go into the details of it and tell you, there are 11 kinds of features, there are 11 points which talks about how to get transformed. You have to know the name of your character, you have to know the color of your character, what is the complexion of the character, you have to know what is the nature of that character, what kind of food habits does she have. It is just like working when you are preparing for the character. In Haberman's book, Haberman is trying to create a comparison between another great stalwart of theatre, Stanislavski, who has theorized theatre practicing. That particular model he is trying to compare with Rāgānugā Bhakti Sādhana, and he shows that. But in the kind of propositions that Stanislavski has, it has got a limitation. You just be Othello now or be Hamlet now, and the next moment you are again Janardan. But when you are going into Rāgānugā Bhakti, you become Lalita Sakhi, then you are Lalita Sakhi until and unless you receive Krishna. So that process is a kind of, and would go till the end of it. So till you find the goal. Ramakrishna practiced it in his, after his tantric practice. I'll just take another 3 minutes, sir. Okay, 2 minutes. After his tantric practice, Ramakrishna decided to do bhakti. And then there was this Brahmani who was an expert in Panchabhavas and these different Sakhya Bhava, Dasya Bhava and all these bhavas, who was an expert, contributed to the ideation how to enter that world of it. And Ramakrishna during that time asked Mathur Babu, who was the manager of Dakshineshwar temple and was looking after the temple, to get everything for him, like her sari, the trinkets, the wig, the golden jewelry, and he would wear them and continuously be in that state. And even Mathur Babu would kind of get confused with the lasya in his body. You saw that, is it a real woman going or is it Thakur going? Like that kind of difficulty he had. Now, I had some other kind of arguments about Butler's, Judith Butler's gender performativity, which I don't want to bring in that academic discussion now. I just want to go into what Thakur did. So what this has been very interestingly written in his biography named The Puthi. So with that I will end. I've just done a translation myself, and it talks about how he had all the 19 lakshanas of Radha in his body after the four-day practice of this Rāgānugā Bhakti Sādhana. I'll just read out the translation and call it a day from my side. There was a desire in his heart, impatient to begin his sadhana. The yearning was so potent that his body got transformed. His male body had no masculinity. The Gosai felt like a young maid. The walk, the talk, the looks and all, body, grace, smile, and every aspect, the way his hips swayed, that it was impossible to discern him from a lady. No imperfection in his dress and style. On his head he wore a long-haired wig. He wore an embroidered Varanasi sari, wrapped a piece of cloth around his chest, and wore trinkets around his lovely feet. So did he serve Sri Radha as her Sakhi. Finally, Srimati Rai entered his pious body inundated with Radha's bhava. Radha and Prabhu were no different. In love and warmth was mad for Krishna. There were signs of Prakriti in his body. Started bleeding for 3 days. Every month, blood dripped from the pores of his groins as he wore a loincloth for those 3 days. The body body has gone through that extreme transformation that she becomes like a Rajaswala. And it is documented, and it is both written by even Swami Sardhananda and Akhoy Kumar Sen. Both they have, and Swamiji has said that these are authenticated, these are kind of authentic versions. So it happens. An actor, if is immersed in a performance, there is just not a mental transformation, but also a physical transformation. But we can't reach to that intense kind of performances, so our transformations are minor. Maybe it might be sweating, it might be a little bit of stammering, it might be some kind of horripilations in our body or shivering. But if it is too extreme, you might go into that. Even when he did Hanumana, his coccyx increased by 4 inches, like a tail, which again receded. So that means this phenomena is an extremely, I'm so sorry I took a lot of time. Thank you. Recently I was visiting Somajbadi, which is also in Navadvip. There are, just the last slope, this particular sadhaka was still practicing Sakhi Bhava. Last slide. The last slide. I'm still trying to find out, just before Pranama. So she is Lalita Sakhi, and I just met the person who served her, who is also doing this Sakhi, who is doing sadhana as a Sakhi Bhav. Her name is Radha Pada, and he is octogenarian sadhaka who is practicing it in Samajbadi, that is in Navadvip. So, in Navadvip, in Nadia, in the district of Nadia in Bengal. That's all from my side. Thank you, sir. I'm so sorry.
This was a very, very difficult responsibility I had to carry out. Very difficult to carry out, Janardan Ghosh ji. Dr. Janardan Ghosh has been a great discovery for INDICA Academy in our last conference. When he was presenting a paper, we thought, where was he all these days? How did we miss him? Now we are going to have a lot to do with his cooperation, with his help. This topic of Rāgānugā Bhakti, one of my students, Dr. Srinivas Acharya, who worked on Ras Leela Natak of Vrindavan, I remember all his words, the same Stanislavski. Every time people talk about Rāgānugā Bhakti, Stanislavski comes in, and the whole thing. Wonderful, very great. But we have miles to go, many promises to keep.